There's a point on many trips where you realize what you remember aren't the famous landmarks, museums, and attractions. For us, this trip through Spain and Italy started to change when we stopped simply looking at places and started participating in them. Some of our favorite moments happened sitting around tables, helping prepare food, hearing family stories, and learning how people actually live in the places that we were visiting. In today's episode, we want to talk about 3 experiences that completely changed how we connected with this trip and encourage you to seek out similar experiences on your next trip. The first was outside Estepona, Spain, where we shared a meal in the home of Marina and Nacho. Nacho is a professional chef, and together they've created a place where guests can experience traditional food in a very personal setting. While Nacho cooked, Marina shared stories about their lives and the backgrounds behind the dishes that we were eating. The second experience happened outside Florence, where we spent an evening cooking with Christina and her husband Paolo in their home overlooking the hills outside the city. We made tiramisu from scratch. We learned to make ravioli by hand. We watched the sunset over Tuscany from their windows, and we ended the evening eating dinner in their garden. And finally, in Puglia, we visited a working masseria near Ostuni called Masseria Frenete, where we learned how mozzarella and burrata are made. We saw the dairy operation that supports the farm, and we heard the story of a local woman who moved back home to Italy after spending over a decade working in London. All 3 experiences had something in common. They helped us appreciate these destinations in a way that went far beyond sightseeing. We're Scott and Melissa, the Sunshine Travelers.
We're all about exploring the world and sharing the journey with you, whether you're a seasoned traveler, dreaming of your next adventure, or just here for the stories.
No matter where you are on your travel journey, we've got firsthand experiences, tips, and plenty of inspiration from some of the most amazing places on Earth.
So buckle up and get ready to travel with us. When you travel to places like Italy and Spain, where there is so much to see and do, experiences like the ones that we're going to share with you in this episode today can really help you slow down a little and enjoy the time in those places a little bit differently. Because when you travel quickly and try to see so many things, it's easy to spend your whole day moving from one attraction to the next. But these kinds of experiences forced us to sit down, to stay a while, and really soak in the experience.
And I think for us, that was a welcome pause in Spain with Marina and Nacho at their home just outside of Estepona, because we had just wrapped up an action-packed itinerary in London at the beginning of our trip.
So in Spain, we were there with family, and one of the items on Sassy's wish list was to do some sort of cooking class or a cooking experience. Scott did a lot of research, and while this one that we ended up picking wasn't necessarily a cooking class, it was an opportunity for us as a family to have a meal with a local couple in their home on the side of a mountain. A few weeks before we even left, we actually connected with Marina using WhatsApp to discuss our visit. Now, this isn't required, but since we had a larger group, we had 9 people total, more of a diverse group. We had kids, we had seniors. She really wanted to make sure that the food and the experience was what we wanted it to be, and there would be something that everybody would enjoy. She was very communicative on instructions about how to get there and what to do when we arrived. But she came down and greeted us, and we spent some time as she showed us around their property. They have some Airbnb type accommodations on site. So if people wanted to stay with them right there near their home, small rustic accommodations, outdoor showers, surrounded by nothing but nature and olive trees and fruit trees. I mean, it was just absolutely stunning.
When you come here, you aren't just sitting down for dinner. You're entering someone's home and hearing their story while the meal is being prepared. And for this one, Nacho, being a professional chef, definitely elevated the experience from a food perspective. But honestly, what stayed with me most was Marina explaining the dishes and talking to us about how food connects to family and culture in Spain. That was really a big part of what we did in this experience. And it was very meaningful because we were sitting there around her table with her family. And so we sat there, and I would just say that this felt very different from the way that we would go to a restaurant with the family group and sit at a table and be served a meal. It was so much more personal in doing this inside Marina and Nacho's home. And the food was very different from what you'd expect from like a restaurant. But this was their traditional food and the way that, but this was their traditional food. And it was the things that they would prepare and eat themselves.
Yeah, and she told us, she was like, "We really eat very simple meals, very healthy meals, very simple meals, but the way that he obviously prepared them was super elevated." And Scott, one thing I wanted to add about the experience, like you were saying, different from a restaurant, is because the kids could just kind of relax. Like they had free roam, they had like a sofa, they had dogs and cats, and the kids were just free to just kind of relax. It was just so personable. It was literally like we were in the home of friends, even though we had had one conversation with them and this was our first time meeting in person. It was honestly like just being welcomed into their home. And I think that that really changes how you experience a place that you are just visiting, a place that you're traveling to. And just as we were there and enjoying this time together, I just kept thinking, wow, like this is how everyone should experience travel. This is how you can experience a real part of Spain. When someone invites you into their home like this, you stop feeling like a tourist for a little while. And like I said, you just really start feeling like a guest. You realize that food is not just about eating. It is so tied into traditions, family gatherings, holidays, local ingredients, and even, of course, a regional identity. And I think we were also really surprised. It's not like Spanish food like we would think of Spanish food. And so it's what a family would really eat.
And I think that's one of the key points. You mentioned this just a minute ago is how simple the ingredients were, or how simple the meal was. And I think we often try to overcomplicate things. But learning that in their everyday, they don't cook these very extravagant, difficult foods with lots of items and lots of ingredients. They just eat very simple meals. They're elevated because when you have a professional chef like Nacho cooking them, they're going to be a little more elevated. But it wasn't complicated. It was just simple food.
She also shared with us, for example, of some of the stories, why the accent, the Spanish accent in this region of Spain exists. It was because of the list that King Ferdinand II had, and his courtiers spoke with that same lisp, they call it, to make him feel comfortable, something that we
Well,
had never heard.
yeah. But she also did tell us that a lot of Spaniards will push back and say that that's not true, that they don't have a lisp, that it is actually just part of their language.
And it is, but just, yeah, so that maybe possibly that is the origin of it. Just so interesting, though. Again, something that you're not going to get from sitting down at a restaurant and being served. So after hearing those stories while the food was being prepared, it just gave us a much deeper appreciation for what we're eating, because then he also shared, like, this is how we prepare this, and this is kind of why we prepare this. And in like northern Spain, it might be a little bit different. And so we also were invited into the kitchen to kind of watch how he does it as well. I also love that we weren't rushed. It wasn't like this is a 2-hour experience and like, we're on the clock or anything like that. And I felt like that's the entire point, to just really simply enjoy the afternoon together. The other thing I wanted to mention about this is that like when we booked it, you could book it for lunch or dinner. But then through the conversation with her, she's like, "Oh, I think for the children, it's better if we have a late lunch, kind of like what we would do." So they really tried to be very intentional to make it the best experience for all of that. So we're going to put the information to contact them directly to book it. We did find them and book this through a platform called Eat With. Has a variety of all kinds of different food experiences, but we're going to how to contact them directly, also to how to stay in their accommodations, and then, of course, how you could find more experiences with Eat With. I wanted to share something really interesting as well is that our daughter Carrie was with us and she had a friend from college who was actually going to be in this area in the next couple of weeks, and they were able to book this same experience with Nacho and Marina right away because I think Carrie had posted it and or talked to her and said, "Oh, you've got to do this. Like this is such a fantastic experience." So we were glad to be able to share this experience with another family.
I'm not sure why, but I think this experience with Marina and Nacho was a reflection point for both of us about how we wanted to approach the rest of our trip. It made us start looking for experiences where we could spend time with locals and participate in something like learning how to cook or making cheese. We've always enjoyed these personal experiences, but it's easy to get wrapped up in itinerary planning, especially when you're putting together such a really long trip like we've been doing.
So we found something in Florence that we were really looking forward to. We just didn't know how much we were going to need this experience once we arrived.
Yeah. Florence was interesting to us because while it's an incredible city, at times it really felt crowded and overwhelming. We had just come from small towns in Tuscany and really enjoyed the local feel of Bologna and Pisa and Siena. But when we got to Florence, there's just so many tourists and so many people trying to see all of the same things at the same time. You had cars and motorcycles crammed into the same spaces as the people going down the streets. I think before this experience, we were struggling a little bit to connect with Florence beyond the major attractions. And also, it just happened to be there on the first weekend in May, which is a holiday weekend throughout Europe. But because of our itinerary, it couldn't be helped even if we had have realized it ahead of time. We had found a local cooking class through Cesarene that pairs local cooking instructors with travelers for authentic culinary experiences with locals in their homes. And Cesarene is the largest and oldest community of over 1,500 home cooks in Italy. So there's a lot of these that you can choose from. And they're in more than 450 cities and towns across the country. And it's people. They're open the doors of their homes to host guests and share their tradition of Italian cuisine and culinary experiences, cooking classes, and they also do food and wine tours. And we had a lot of options to choose from on this trip, but we chose to do the cooking class in a lemon grove in the hills of Florence. And I think just the description was captivating, right? Even before we knew what Florence was going to be like, you had me in the lemon grove on the hillside.
And you know what, Scott? I was a little bit worried. Like, I didn't think of this as we were planning the trip, but like a couple of days before, I was like, how far is this place going to be?
Yeah, because we didn't have a car.
Because we didn't have a car. And I was like, and we've had issues with taxis before. And we were like, oh gosh, how far is this going to place? But it's not far away, except it feels like you're so far away from the city. So we were able to take a taxi up into the hills outside Florence. I will say we also had an opportunity to WhatsApp with them. I actually did a call with them as well. They were just wanted to confirm that we were coming. And I had questions about, easy to take a taxi. Will it be easy to get a taxi back? I mean, of course, I think if there'd been any problems, they would have helped us, obviously. But it was fantastic, and it was great to have that communication ahead of time. So we passed the famous Piazza Michelangelo. You've probably seen this up above the hills, and people crowd there, I would say, at sunset
Yeah.
to like overlook. So we passed that. And immediately after that, everything started changing. We had obviously left what felt like the tourist area of Florence. And so even though it was just a short drive away, like you could start to see the lemon groves and the olive trees and the houses and people's homes instead of just the city. Not that people don't live in the city, but I guess more of like the hillside, I guess I should say, instead of down in the city. Our driver had stopped at this one little place and he told us, walk up the footpath. It's like 2 minutes. It's just right up there. Now, come to find out, it was really just a narrow street. And she said, oh, we could have driven up here, but it wasn't a big deal at all. And then I guess that probably helped us because we walked back into that little area to get the taxi back after.
So their home overlooked Florence from the hills, and the setting alone completely changed the mood of our trip and definitely the evening. Christina came out. She met us at the gate and walked us down to their home, which she told us is actually historically known as the Lemon House. And their home sat on the side of the hill overlooking a garden. And when I say a garden, I'm talking about this is a full on orchard style setting of olive trees, lemon trees, various fruit trees, and lots of beautiful flowers. It was almost difficult getting started with the cooking class because we wanted to just take off and explore the garden a little bit. Our first task was learning to make tiramisu from scratch, which honestly was a lot less involved than I expected. And personally, tiramisu is not my favorite dish, or at least the times I've had it previously. Usually the cookies are soggy and often bitter from soaking in coffee. It just isn't a dessert that I would choose until now. And so Melissa's job was cracking and separating the eggs, and my job was to beat them and turn them into a light, fluffy cream, and then the yolks into a silky cream. And I got some terrific compliments in my egg beating skills.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to say about the tiramisu is they were like, "You don't use lady fingers. Like, you have these." And so she showed us, and she did say that she thinks that we can order from off Amazon at home. And then you also don't soak them in the coffee. You literally dip them for like so fast in there.
Yeah.
And so it's just honestly, it's literally a few simple ingredients. But since the tiramisu needed a couple of hours in the fridge to set up properly, we needed to do that first and get it in the fridge.
You know what I think those little crackers that she used or the little cookies that she used, you know what I think they remind me of? Like a vanilla wafer.
Probably more than a ladyfinger for sure. I think even more light, but that
Yeah.
might be interesting. You could probably try them. You could try them
Yeah.
with vanilla wafer, and then you might have your favorite dessert in the whole world.
Maybe.
So we actually moved on to the antipasti. Christina brought out something that I have been wanting to try for so long, and it's never been in season whenever we've been somewhere where they've had it on the menu. So we had the flowers from the zucchini, and she said they were just like not really in season like that local area, that they would bring them from Sicily right now, but she knew somebody and had gotten them fresh. So she showed us how they would lightly batter them and then fry them. And it was neat because we did that outside. She had like a setup to do that outside. So we stood in the middle of the garden. We enjoyed our fried zucchini flowers because she said, like, you have to eat these right away. You cook them, you eat them. We had a glass of wine. We then talked about how she grows things in her garden. And then she has farmer friends close by to get some of the other things. Like Scott said, they have a lot of fruit trees and a lot of different things that they grow.
Yeah, it sounds like they do a lot of bartering in that area. Like, I have this, you have that, let's exchange that. And then they go to the market and get the other few things that they absolutely have to have. So then we moved on to making ravioli stuffed with spinach and cheese. And Christina explained that traditional Italian cooking and wine meals are such an important part of family life in Italy. And so making pasta was really easy. And I'm not sure why we don't make it more at home or why people don't make it more at home. I think we will going forward. Actually been looking at some of the pasta rolling and cutting machines for when we return from our trip. We've seen a lot of them in the stores here, but there's no way that we're going to lug that around in our luggage for the remainder of the trip. And so I see that we can buy the actual same ones on Amazon. So I think we'll do that when we get back home.
Yeah, and so the recipe is super simple just to, put it together. I mean, it really is in the getting the rolling right and knowing how many times to do it. But I mean, even that part just was so easy. And then when you have the pasta like that, it cooks so quickly. But I wanted to share one of my favorite moments from this entire experience was when we were making the pasta. The sun was setting like right outside their window. So we stopped a few minutes to pause and look outside, grab our cameras, take some pictures. And I loved it because also grabbed her camera and took pictures of it and several times, which I just thought was neat because this is something that she sees every day, but it's still so special and wonderful and beautiful to her. And I just absolutely love that.
Yeah, I like that it never gets too old to just stop and enjoy. And then after that, and we made the ravioli. Oh, went in and kind of finished cooking it because the actual kitchen area is very small. But he finished cooking it. He and Christina, while we went out into the garden, he had set this beautiful table out in the garden, and the sun setting as the background. I mean, it was really just amazing. We had our dinner out there with some wine and great conversation. And I think this honestly just became one of the defining moments of Florence for me because before that evening, Florence was just a place that we were visiting this one time, checking it off our list. And honestly, I would have been done.
One thing I wanted to share, we did sit with her in the garden for a few minutes before we got started. And she told us that the reason that she likes to do this is that, so as we have said, they have this beautiful setting. They wanted to share it with people. And I think they started out having like groups come and cocktail party type of a situation. But she just said, I didn't enjoy that. It was too many people, that she wanted to find some way to let travelers experience what they get to experience, but in small, intimate groups. I think sometimes the Cesarena experiences may have up to a certain number of people, and so other people might be able to book, but I think she likes to make hers 100% private so that you have that experience with them and you get to have that conversation and interaction with them.
After that evening, Florence started feeling like a place that we could actually picture ourselves coming back to and spending more time in. And I think it's because of this experience and really having that time with Christine and Paolo and really opening our eyes to a different side of Florence.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I think we wouldn't stay like inside Florence either. Like we would stay here, and then you could go into Florence to like do some things. And it also is just a great reminder that Florence and places like this are not just the museums, the churches, the tourists, the groups. It's also about the neighborhoods, the homes, gardens. You know, sitting down and sharing a family meal with them, you know, as their guest, and traditions that they still care deeply about. Several times her husband Paula told us, we just want to have the opportunity to share what our lives are like with other people. And I just thought that was just absolutely beautiful.
And it's easy to think that cooking classes can sound touristy when you first hear about them. Even Paulo said that some of the ones you find in the cities where a large group crams into a little room, you drink the wine the whole time, that's not the best experience that you can have. But when you find the right experience, it becomes so much more than, just learning a recipe. And I think what we take away from Cesarini is that travelers don't just want to eat Italian food anymore, is that they really want to understand the Italian life. And so they're pairing those two things together. You're learning how people gather, how they eat, how they spend time together, and what actually matters to them culturally.
So we want you to hear just a little clip from her husband, Paolo. In our opinion, Christina's English was great, but I don't think that she was as comfortable like recording. I mean, she was great with us, but they did want to share a little bit for the podcast because I really think what he told us sums up the things that we are wanting to express the most about
our way of life. I mean, we enjoy sharing these peace, calmness, a vision. I mean, going back to nature is really important. For us, was a change of scenario, from the city coming back here. Plus, we have some country roots, so we enjoy, gardening all the time. Growing our fruit, our olive oil. Enjoying the sunset every night, even though it's raining or it's foggy or whatever. And it's always nice, even though it changes most of the time. And sharing there is a different way, to live your own life. Of course, doesn't mean that this is the ultimate and the only one, but for the people that we see sometimes it's really enlightening. I mean, it's really, I remember I remember people that they came over. There was one that she made me laugh a lot. She said, if I was living here in Florence, I would gravitate around Christina. I mean, she's like my sister. I mean, I feel like she, she was really absorbed from these way of doing. So, I mean, Christina, she's always happy and always, glad about her life. And she's always thinking about the other people and what can I do to feel better. I mean, she always has a nice thought, for the others. And this is, happened naturally. I mean, but the whole thing started out with COVID because we realized how lucky we were to live here in a place like this. So after COVID, she started, doing happenings and cooking classes and whatever. I mean, she does a lot of different things, but this is something that, she does it, because she has this passion of, it's not rocket science. It's not like high cuisine. It's just a very basic life. With good ingredients.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mentioned to you is that I think the best things, we've been in Italy a couple of weeks now, I think, and the best meals we've had have been the most simple, right? And you mentioned that it's not about how many different ingredients can I put in a dish. It's just very simple, whether it's pasta, you've had some like meat dishes, but just simple ingredients that I think we overcomplicate what we want to call Italian food.
Yeah. Besides the complication, it's also the nature of the food. We try to source local, anything that we buy. I mean, from the supermarket, we only get, the soap and these kind of things, I mean, the toilet paper or things like that. But regarding food, we still go to the farmers or to the small stores, where we know what's going on. Plus, we grow a lot of things ourselves too. So that's it. There is tomato and tomatoes. I mean, there is a plum and a plum, an apricot and an apricot. They are different. It's funny because, for example, I grow old species here. And when people come here and they taste a plum or an apricot, they're like, oh my God, what is this? I mean, completely different, It's something that goes back when we were kids. Nowadays, if you go to a supermarket and you buy an apricot, it tastes like nothing. Or a cherry, it tastes like nothing.
We talk about this a lot, is that when we were children, you ate the things that grew that time of year. You didn't have stuff that
all year round.
All year round.
The eggplant is not all year round, or the zucchini is not all year round, So you got to eat what's, in the season. You cannot have strawberries or cherries all year round. It's not right. Not fair. It's not good for you because they're coming from faraway places. They travel a lot. They're full of preservatives, because they last forever. They're fossils.
That's true. So tell us a little bit, how did you get involved with the Cesarine?
Oh, I mean, when she started doing this, then it just happened that a good friend of ours, he was doing it.
Okay.
So we said, why don't you join, the Cesarina team? I mean, you get more visibility, you get a bigger audience. I mean, of course, of doing it on our small here, with our connections. So that's how it started. Thanks to Massimiliano.
Okay.
A good friend of mine that he was doing it, and he was very good at it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great network because I know that when you book through platforms like that, like there is you have to pay something or whatever, but it does give you visibility because I think people in the US, like they go on different platforms to say, okay, what are the reviews and what have people have to say and what are the pictures? I mean, so it is a great opportunity for especially people in the US to, if you're visiting Florence, for example, and you're in the city for however many days, to just have at least an evening or an afternoon, if you could do lunch, to just come and have this beautiful view that you're sharing with us and just the beautiful experience. Because you honestly do. I mean, I can see the lights of the city as we're talking, but you feel like your world's away from the the city and the crowds.
Besides
and
Marcello that is barking.
No. But you hear, I mentioned, I hear the birds again, but you still get the church bells.
Yes.
I think around the corner, probably 1,000 of your closest friends would be watching the sunset, but here you get it for yourselves.
Does it ever get old?
No, but also the place is very dark because we have the astrophysics school right there. When you see those lights, the yellow building.
Yeah.
It's an excellent school, but also because Galileo Galilei used to live here down the street.
Okay.
That's why we have the astrophysics school, the astronomy point, and everything, And also why it's so dark.
Wow.
There is no massive lighting here because of that.
And the sunsets last forever, right? A long time.
Yes,
Fantastic.
yes. If it's no, when of course if it's foggy or cloudy,
Sure.
but if it's serene, you enjoy the summer. It can the sunset can be red, purple, pink, orange.
What I love is because he went and took a picture of the sunset and the beautiful sky because it is really that beautiful. Yes. And you live here. So I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. And honestly, food and wine are such a major part of the Italian culture that it's hard to fully appreciate Italy without experiencing that side of it in a way like this. And it also makes me think about to the winery with Federica, right? That's what she said that too, about the wine. The wine is for sitting down and enjoying together and enjoying with the food.
And I think this is an interesting and important distinction, is because Melissa, you and I are not foodies, right? And so normally you would think that this is something that a foodie would want to do. But no, I think for us, it was more about, yes, it was tremendous and great food, and we loved the learning something new and, something that we're actually going to take back with us. But it was that experience and spending the time together and just hearing their stories. I think that was what made this different.
Scott, the other thing I want to mention about the food, because you mentioned it about this food in Spain, is this was also very, very simple. And Paolo made the comment is that sometimes Americans complicate Italian food. Too many ingredients, I think was one of the comments that he made, too many ingredients. So the ravioli was the spinach and the cheese on the inside. And they did it with a very simple homemade tomato sauce, almost crushed tomatoes, not anything like what we would think of, just like plain
like a
tomato
pomodoro sauce.
Yeah. And we had it with some bread, and we had the fried zucchini flowers, and then we had the tiramisu. And it was so fantastic.
You know what I love? One thing that I enjoyed is we had a conversation about what do you put cheese on, because they had the cheese that you could put on top of here. And we had said, hey, there seems to be this debate about Americans think that if it's Italian food, you sprinkle the
Parmesan cheese,
Parmesan
grated Parmesan cheese on top. Yeah.
On top of it. And I think he was like, you're kind of overthinking this a little bit. But then I asked the question, would you put it on seafood? And both of them just snapped really quick. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, why would you do that?
Yeah.
So there are some strict rules about what you can put the cheese on top of.
And one reason that you had mentioned that is because we have noticed in restaurants, if people ordered pasta, sometimes they would bring, or even us, they would bring the Parmesan, and sometimes they wouldn't. And you don't, you feel awkward. It's not like we have to have it or anything like that, but just kind of knowing. And so we just asked them that question. But just going back to that, it was very simple meal, but just absolutely spectacular. So one other thing I wanted to point out about Cesarina is that unlike most other platforms that connect visitors with experiences all over the world, it is specific to Italy. And just real quick, it's been around for a while. So it was founded in 2004 as a cultural and gastronomic association in Bologna, which shouldn't surprise us now because they're so centered around food. We saw so much of that when we were there. And so the reason that this was started was to help preserve and share Italy's culinary heritage. And since then, the community has grown to include skilled cooks who embody this traditional cuisine by performing these meaningful gestures like we've been talking about. Italian hospitality, opening their homes to guests, sharing recipes, sharing these methods. And then we literally sat down at their table with them like we were guests in their home because we were, but we sat there and ate these meals together.
Yeah, it almost felt like you were sitting down and having a meal with a friend. That's what it felt like.
Absolutely. We joked with them. We're like, we really don't want to leave.
Yeah.
We're just going to stay here. Like it was a fantastic, beautiful setting and the space for cooking and their windows. And we just can't stress enough how fantastic it was. So we would encourage you for your next trip, and this one's going to be Italy specifically, is to check out Cesarina. So it is Cesarine. We'll include a link to this. And so you can look and you can search by the different cities and the dates, and you can even connect with the company. And if you're looking for something specific, and they will help guide you. And that was one thing that I love about them. And that's going to just help you find authentic and enriching experiences with the food and the culture, the people that you end up cooking with and booking with and connecting with.
Are you looking to plan your next unforgettable adventure? At Sunshine Travelers Experiences, we specialize in helping you create tailor-made travel journeys that turn your vacation dreams into reality. Whether you're craving a relaxing beach escape, an awe-inspiring cultural journey, or a thrilling outdoor adventure, we can help. Why choose Sunshine Travelers Experiences? Personalized itineraries designed just for you, expert travel advice and insider tips, seamless booking from start to finish, exclusive access to top destinations and hidden gems. We also book cruises, all-inclusives, groups, tours, and so much more. If you're unsure where to even start planning that bucket list trip, start by asking us. Then let Sunshine Travelers Experiences handle the planning so you can focus on making the memories. Explore now, sunxtravel.com. If you have any questions, email us info@sunshinetravelers.com. Well, so then Puglia gave us a completely different perspective yet again.
So, Scott, I think we should start out by explaining where Puglia is, because it's not like, I think, as much on the radar as a destination to visit. So think of Italy, and the bottom part being the boot. It is like in the heel of the boot.
Yeah. Just pick up your phone, say Puglia, and then in your Instagram feed, Facebook feed, it'll be full of stories about Puglia.
And once you start seeing them and researching this area, you probably will be like, oh, okay, I've seen things. But since Puglia is in southern Italy, it is a lot more rural. You definitely find some really amazing food in this region. So this experience that we booked at Masseria Franita really much more connected us to the land and a farm and producing the food itself. And we had heard about this experience from some friends of ours.
And, it's interesting because this wasn't to be an experience like Cesarene, where we sit down with a couple inside their, garden and have a meal. This was about seeing how the cheese is being made. And it also wasn't just a tasting experience. So we didn't just show up and taste some cheeses and, kind of let that be the process. We actually saw the entire process literally from start to finish. So we saw the cows where they get the milk from. Then that milk is turned into the cheese, mostly like mozzarella, burrata, and other types of cheeses that they make right there on site at the masseria.
And Scott, I'm going to be honest. She kept naming so many kinds of cheeses that I'm like, I've never even heard of these words before. Yeah. And I mean, it has to do because they had the cows there, but then they bring in sheep and goat, and it has to do with like all the different processes and how long they age them and all that kind of stuff.
And I think you were sold at the moment that you saw they made the burrata cheese there.
Yes, they do. And we got to see. So she was showing us, okay, this is where, we pump in the milk. There was actually a small delivery truck because, like I mentioned, they have their own milk from the cows, but they bring in the other. So the delivery truck was bringing the other that they hook up and pump in. And so she was explaining that. But then we got to go in with the cheesemaker and actually make the mozzarella. And then the inside of the burrata is called stracciatella, which to us, we were always like, that's like the ice cream. But it has the same name. And I looked it up and it says same spelling, same name, same pronunciation. But he showed us from the mozzarella after you make it, like how that is made. You put the pieces of that in this cream.
Well, basically, they just kind of stretch out the mozzarella into a stringy substance, and then they put it into some, I guess, heavy cream. And then that becomes the inside or the burrata.
And then you put it back in the mozzarella to make the burrata. So it was just fascinating to be able to do this. And so then we actually got to make some ourselves. Well, I should say. So he pretty much like made it into the mozzarella. So he showed us how he like chopped it off and then he did all the stretching and stuff like that. So when I say we got to make it into the different shapes.
Yeah. I mean, he talked about how you stretch it and they use really hot boiling water and they stretch it until it gets kind of the silky, shiny texture that they're looking for. And then once it gets there, that's when they start making the mozzarella.
And so we got to try our hand at make them into the little knots, or you'd have them in the little braids and different things like that. So we got to do that as well and taste it right there on the spot. So that was just really, really cool.
We got to taste the pieces that we made. And let me just say that there's a reason that professionals do this every day. Later, they brought those pieces that we made along with some that the professional made out for us to taste. And we were like, yeah, those are the professional ones. And these are ours.
So what I loved is also like they do this from start to finish. So just seeing how connected this is to a local farm, like to the land. It's an organic farm. I felt like what she showed us, what she told us, like their cows are just they're happy, they're humanely treated. You know, they milk them for a while and then they allow them to get pregnant again and then they get a break. And we saw some of the babies. And so it was just a fantastic experience to be able to see the whole process. Like I said, the dairy operation. Now, we didn't see them actually milk the cows because they do that like really early in the morning, but we did see them come up and get to eat. So of course the cheese production, they also have a bakery there. They have a butcher shop there. Now she was like, you don't want to go there. You don't want to see that, but they have a shop also. Well, I say butcher shop. They have the place where they do the meat processing and then they have a shop and locals come by and buy all their things.
Because in addition to the cows, they also have a large herd of pigs that feed on the acorns in an acorn grove. And I thought that was really great because that's supposed to be like the top notch, ham that is fed on those acorns versus grain.
And we, of course, would get to try some of that as well. And the bakery is wood. They use the olive wood. We met the baker and he let us try a couple of things and he showed us like, here's my olive wood that I use and I put it on the side and, all the, the stone, I guess it's a stone oven, brick oven, stone oven. So that was just really, really neat because it's traditional. It's rustic. So we also got to go into the cheese aging rooms. So Scott and I had never seen anything like that before. They had this one where they take an orange, probably from their groves, I would say, and they put the cheese around it and it ages in there. So the oils from the peel influence the flavor of the cheese. And so when we walked into the shop before we did like our full tasting, she had actually just cut one of those and we got to have a taste of that one. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I think that sounds really strange until you taste it. And then it makes complete sense. And honestly, one of the most interesting parts of the day was hearing Julia's story. Julia was our guide during this. So she grew up in this area and then she had moved to London for over a decade doing professional work. And then she eventually decided to move back home after having a son. And her reason for moving back was very simple. She just wanted her son to grow up around family and small town life. And I think that story really stayed with us because it reflected something we've heard from a lot of people during this trip. There's a really strong connection to community and family life in these smaller Italian towns that many people don't want to lose.
Yeah, and I think experiences like this just really help you understand why people stay connected to these places because you're seeing this in everyday life, not just the tourist version of a destination. And I wanted to add a couple of other things about like our visit. There was a small school group there. And so she was actually like, I'm so happy to have you guys on this tour, right? So, and then there was a lady who had come by to like pick up something in their shop, and the kid was in the car, and she was like, "I'm sorry, I'm not greeting y'all. Like, I'm trying to figure out. I just like want to keep my eye on him." And but it was just like this is just normal. Like, it's not anything polished or professional, or they're watching out for each other. They're like just taking care of each other, and I don't know. It was just like we're cool with that. And for us to then have that conversation, I think she really enjoyed sharing because she was like, "Oh, thanks for having that chat with me," or whatever. I don't know. She just like really enjoyed being able to share that and maybe I don't know, connect with tourists maybe in a way that sometimes she doesn't get to.
Well, we'll put a link to this experience in the show notes. For this one, we booked the private tour, which allowed us to make the mozzarella that we would then eat and have the full tour, that had a basket of cheese and meat, a local rosé wine, some bread, crackers, and just things like that to enjoy while we sat there. And then you got to take the leftovers with you. So we'll put that link in there. I will say the other experience is they just take you on a tour of the farm, and then you'll still see like how the process is made. You just don't get to do the making it yourself. I think that's the big difference.
And the other thing I would like to add too is if you happen to be by here and you haven't booked a tour, like you can literally just come. You could buy something at the shop, or they would put together a basket like this. So it was some of the different cheeses that we had seen, some of the meats, some of the crackers and bread that we got to enjoy while we were there. And some of the cheeses are soft too. And then they had a zucchini jam that was surprisingly like we were like, we don't know what to expect, but it was delicious. And so I would say when we return to this area, I want to book a place with a kitchen, and I'll be going there to shop and get some things that we can prepare.
Sounds good. Well, these experiences on our trip remind us that some of the best travel experiences happen when you stop trying to see everything and instead just spend time actually connecting with the place. Often you're not going to remember seeing this cathedral or this basilica or that basilica. And you won't even really remember, like, what's the difference between a cathedral and a basilica? We keep asking each other that over and over again.
Even though we keep looking it up.
Yeah.
We do know the answer. And so many of them have the same names too.
And don't get me wrong, we love those things. But if that's all we did, we would be missing out on the real part of Spain and Italy. And so for us, that happened through these experiences, the food, the conversation, the questions, and being welcomed into spaces that felt really personal and authentic. And those experiences gave us a much deeper appreciation for Florence, Puglia, and Estepona that we would have never have gotten from simply walking through a major tourist area. And honestly, those are the experiences we find ourselves thinking about long after the trip is over. Because at the end of the day, places become more meaningful when you connect to Because at the end of the day, places become more meaningful when you connect them to real people and their real stories. And so if this episode inspires you to travel a little differently, that's exactly why we share these experiences. Whether it's a cooking class in Tuscany, a local meal in Spain, or a farm experience in Puglia, those are the kind of experiences we love helping people discover through our Sunshine Travelers experiences. You can always reach out to us through sunshinetravellersexperiences.com, or to make it simple, travel.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, we would really appreciate it if you'd follow the podcast and leave us a review. It really helps us continue growing the show and sharing more stories from around the world. Well, that's it for today's episode. Wherever you're listening from, we hope we've added a little spark to your travel dreams today.
If you've been enjoying the show, a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform goes a long way. It helps new listeners join our Sunshine Travelers family.
Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And join us on Instagram or Facebook at Sunshine Travelers Podcast. Remember, that's Travelers with one L.
And if the stories, tips, and adventures we share bring a little sunshine to your week, you can even buy us a cup of coffee now. You'll find the link in the show notes.
And of course, share this episode with a friend. Adventure is always better together.